Hello and welcome to episode number 325. This is the Project Management Podcast at pm-podcast.com, and I'm Cornelius Fichtner. Welcome back. Have you ever considered being a project management mentor to another PM in your network? I can tell you from personal experience, but while project management coaching sounds like a lot of work, the sort of return on investment that you personally get out of this is immense. And so when I got an email from Jeff Furman and he offered to discuss some of the mentoring approaches that he uses as a project management coach, I was all for it. If you are a PMP or PGMP and you are looking for a simple and effective way to earn your PDUs, then try our sister podcast, the PDU Podcast. Get a new webinar and at least one new PDU every month on autopilot. Stop by at pducast.com. That's pducast.com. In our discussion, Jeff and I review staying in touch, answering questions, helping people connect, helping out on social media, writing recommendations, recommending resources, guiding your mentees to become mentors themselves, and last but not least, speed mentoring, all in order to help you to become a coach. And as you can probably already tell, none of these project management mentoring approaches are really rocket science, but we still have some good best practices for you to follow. And now, what is it that you really want to be and do? Enjoy the interview.
The Project Management Podcasts feature interview. Today with Jeff Furman, author of the Project Management Answer Book and PMP instructor.
Hello, Jeff. Welcome back to the Project Management Podcast.
Oh, hi again, Cornelius. Great to hear from you again.
It's been a while, hasn't it?
Well, the last time was on site down in Texas at the PMI NAC.
Oh, yeah, that's right. That's right. We met in person down there. So today we are going to be talking about mentoring and the top 10 ways of being a mentor. But before we even get into this, our listeners are project managers. They have projects to manage. They have daily issues that they need to worry about. Why is mentoring important to them? Why should they even continue to listen to our interview here? Well, what will they learn today?
Well, really, it makes you a much better project manager in many ways. It sounds a little like I can't take time away from managing to be a mentor, but it's really, I would say, the opposite. Mentoring, it's first of all, it's very gratifying and satisfying. So we like those parts of our job that are gratifying, and mentoring is really, I would say, way at the top. And I think we study in PMP the Maslow pyramid, and I think of it that way. You're sort of reaching the top of the pyramid when, for you and for your people, when you are mentoring them, you're helping them get better. And I would also say, I've noticed not every manager is probably also a mentor, but a leader is always a good mentor. So mentoring really is a leadership quality, and it puts you to the leadership next level.
So we're not purely talking about mentoring other project managers. We're talking about mentoring in general, right?
Yeah, I mean, you wind up as a mentor for, in my case, for other project managers, other instructors, but also my people, my students when I teach. So it's really very wide open. There's lots of room in the world for mentorship.
All right. And what will the listeners actually get out of being a mentor to another project manager or another person on their team?
Yeah, I think, first of all, you get the satisfaction of helping others and the personal growth for yourself, which are really pretty big. But in addition, specifically to your career, I think it makes you much more promotable. It makes you look like a senior PM instead of a junior PM. And it really also enhances your reputation, I think, when people see that you're not just a taskmaster, but a mentor to your people and to others. And I think it's something that you see this and you think of it maybe not consciously, but when you see a good leader, you assume that they're a mentor. So it's kind of goes built in to being a better manager on your projects and more of a real leader.
Okay, so much for the introduction and overview here. We're now going to jump into these top 10 ways of being a mentor. You sent me a list. I'm going to be introducing each of these 10, and we're actually working up to something that I had personally never heard of. Number 10 is going to be speed mentoring, but more about that in a little while. So, number 1, keeping in touch with students after a class. What is that all about? How is that work into mentoring for you?
Well, yeah, many projects and teaching also, people often nowadays think, okay, task finished, check the box. But actually, it's very important. And it's actually a PMP principle also that the project doesn't just immediately come to a screeching halt, that there's a lot of good benefit to following up that you can do on a project or with a class. So with my students, I found one really good way whenever one of my students gets a PMP certification. I take the little bit of extra time to send them a congratulations note. And I also say, is it okay if I send the note also carboning all your classmates? So they always say yes, but I like to ask. And then so I send a note to, let's say, to 18 people. It's really a great bit of mentoring for the person who just got their PMP. It's like a little career boost or a little bit of extra networking that everyone sees that they got it. It also has side benefits of motivating the other students to go for their test, and it also makes them appreciate that I did that for the student.
All right. And then number 2, very closely related actually to number 1. Sometimes your students send you questions after a class has finished.
Yeah, this is something that happens the longer I've been a trainer, a PMP instructor, that the more students see how much you know from your experience and the more they trust you. Not just little quick questions, but sometimes it can be a pretty big question. Like I teach a class in ethics and project management, as you know, and sometimes a student will come up with a pretty serious ethical issue at the office, and they don't really feel like they have anywhere to turn because it's confidential and they don't want to talk to someone at the office. So I occasionally get a question like that, and it's kind of flattering that they ask me, but it's very nice to be able to be mainly a sounding board and give some advice as needed, really. And it's kind of an extra way beyond when the course might have ended even a year ago.
I myself, I'm also a teacher, and so I get the first 2 as well from my students. Many of our listeners won't be teachers, but think of it this way. Even if you're not a teacher, you're a project manager. You have team members that leave your team, and there is always something you can do after they have exited your team. In fact, many of the people that I worked with in the past 3 to 4 years have come back to me and sent questions. So not students, but actual team members, project team members who came back to me and asked for my help. So I always enjoy doing that.
With LinkedIn and Facebook nowadays, I wind up in that role from people that I managed even 20 years ago. Without the social media, that might not have been happening, but I'll get requests from old friends to connect, and then they'll ask me for a little bit of help. So these are guys that I managed a long time ago on my IT teams.
Mm-hmm. Number 3 on your list, letting your students or former team members know about upcoming project management events.
Well, I am in New York City where I work. I live in Hoboken, New Jersey, and New York is really a hotbed of activity. A very active PMI New York City chapter, and also other groups like New York City Scrum, Agile New York City, New York Software Process Improvement Spin. So there's all kinds of events going on, probably much more in New York than most cities. And I sort of found that my students are really happy to hear. They don't really know about these events, but I tell them about it and I put it in a quick blog, and I let my students know about these upcoming events, and they really love it. A lot of them go. I've had 19 students at the last event recently, were my people at a party. So it's something really good for the students that I kind of give them as a bit of an extra. So they get extra free education. They get really good networking events. And I try to go to these events also as much as possible, which is very fun for me. It keeps me sharp going to the new seminars. And also my students like to see that I'm there. I introduce them to each other.
Number 4 on your list is you say that you even have people coming to you who you don't even know asking for your advice.
Well, I'm sure this happens to you also. It's for me.
Yes.
For me, it's because I did a book that I became very outgoing. Like much of it came from being a book, and also when I was started to freelance. But it's very nice, really. It's. I think of it as it's people just like who would be my students or my readers that I would know personally, but I don't know them. But if I can help them, I'm happy to do it. It usually has a reward for me also that they'll recommend me or they'll write a Facebook like on my book or something like that. But anyway, I get a lot of requests that I never would have if not for doing my books and the social media world that we have today.
Yeah, it's the same for me. There are thousands of people listening to this interview right now. And of course, occasionally I get questions from the listeners and, in regards to advice for how do I get into project management and how do I get my PMP. So I get lots of questions from the listeners and I always enjoy answering them. It's just one of the things that I can do to help and give back to the profession. Item number 5 on your list, recommendations.
Yeah, this also started to happen as I become more and more of a senior instructor. I have been asked to write not just like a LinkedIn recommendation, but I've been asked to write recommendations for college, like students of mine who are going for a graduate program. Let's say one of my students, this was very exciting. She asked me to recommend her for a doctoral program and another one for a master's in sustainable project management at Columbia University. So it's kind of an honor to be asked, frankly. But anyway, you think, oh, I better make it pretty. I better put some time into this because their life is in my hands. So it's exciting to help them. And then they tell me when they got into the program. So I feel like maybe I helped them a little bit in that extra way. Totally different from teaching a class, you know.
And for those out there who don't have students, you still have team members, and very likely your team members are on LinkedIn. Why don't you write a LinkedIn recommendation for them? And let the world know what good team members and coworkers they are. And if you don't want to go that far, LinkedIn allows you to give endorsements to people on their skills. So there's just a couple of small ways how you can recommend your former colleagues. Number 6, this is now something specific, of course, to teachers and students. You are helping your students with their PMP applications?
Well, this is a common question. People aren't sure how to do it. I have actually seen people more afraid of writing the application than, in fact, studying for the test. So there's sort of a lot of hype and rumor about how hard the application process is. It's really not that hard if someone shows you how to do it quickly and easily, but that is a common request, and I'm happy to do it. Sometimes it's a student after a class or before a class or just someone I'll meet at a PMI meeting, but I'm happy to help them. And in fact, I have it in my book, a little bit of a how-to, a couple of pages making it pretty quick and easy how to apply.
Mm-hmm. And of course, if you don't want to help others with their PMP application, help them with their application for their next job. People are always looking for their next opportunity. And if you have a few minutes, why not review their resume and give them your feedback? That might help. Then number 7 is helping other instructors, other bloggers, and other authors.
Yeah, the more you make contacts, the more you see other people. You can help them, they can help you. It sort of always comes back to you anyway. But a lot of people I've met a lot of people who said, I always wanted to write a book, but I never knew how or knew how to approach it. So I've helped some people put proposals together, which have been accepted. Just a little bit of advice is usually all they need, an example or two. And and other instructors, people teach all kinds of areas. Like someone will teach, let's say, CISSP, and then they're asked to teach PMP. It's very different, but I can give them a bit of help that makes it easy for them and makes them feel, more confident about it.
Yeah, and this is actually also a great way to extend your network because the more you give, the more you mentor others, the greater your network will be, and the more doors will open for you as you are doing that.
I've absolutely found that to be true. One door seems to always open. For me, writing my book got the door open to. That's where I was asked to teach for the Army, and that's how I wound up teaching quite a lot now at NYU. So at the time, you're focusing on one project, but it often opens a lot of other doors, especially social media and networking can do that.
Number 8 on your list, recommending resources to your former students and colleagues.
Yeah, a lot of people, you and I, we're always looking at resources all over the place. I know you have your top 10 PMP test sites and things like that, but most people never heard of such things. So I will often find that I can help in that way. People love it, and it's a kind of very nice mentoring because, like for instance, I happen to get quite a lot of my students in New York are female, more than half in New York City at NYU, and I know a lot about resources like there's the Women in Project Management LinkedIn group, and we just had a Women in Project Management event in New York City. It was co-sponsored by NYU and the New York PMI chapter. So I tell women about events like that or about recommendations like Elizabeth Harron and Soma Bhattacharya, as you know, and they're very happy that I can give them that kind of very specific advice. It's always good when you can help people in ways that are very meaningful to them, and they never would have heard of those things without you.
Yeah, what I do is I know the interests that my connections have. And I often come across articles that I think, oh, I don't know, Marty might like that or Margaret might like that. So I always forward a quick link and via email to them saying, hey, here's a white paper, here's an article. I think you might enjoy that. And more often than not, they actually write back and thank me for it because I try to make it personal and really targeted to the people that are interested in this. So, the last one that we have on the list before we get to speed mentoring here, number 9, letting them know about mentoring possibilities.
Yeah, mentoring is a mysterious thing. If most people never have a mentor officially, and so they're surprised to know that, for instance, the PMI New York City local chapter literally offers mentorship. You have to just apply, and then there are chapter members who volunteer and they want to be mentors. And then a lot of the PMs who belong to the chapter, they don't know about it, but it's an available resource for them. So I let them know, and it's very nice. I have done it a little bit, and I've done it on both sides as a mentor and a mentee. And people love hearing about that. Also, where I used to work for many years, we had a formal mentoring program, and you could sign up to be formally mentored by a senior leader. And then my senior leader and I, we started a thing called casual mentoring, where rather than make it extremely official, where we would have to record the contents of the meetings and such, we just met, let's say, every third Thursday for an hour, and it met my needs and his to keep it that way. So I got all my questions answered, and we kept it casual, which we both liked. And I mentioned that in my book under casual mentoring. And for some of my students or readers, they'll say, hey, I like that. They'll tell me that I'm their casual mentor, which I didn't really realize that I was.
All right. And then number 10, the item everyone has been waiting for patiently, speed mentoring. Now, when you originally told me about speed mentoring, I had never heard of this before, and I expected it to be something like speed dating. Tell us about it. What is this event that you were involved in? How does it work, the speed mentoring?
Yeah, this is a great new program that was started by the PMI New York City chapter. And the name comes from speed dating, but it's like mentoring, but on a large level, where I have now done 3 of these programs as a participating mentor. So NYU, again, is one of the hosts. Other universities in New York, like City College, also, they're the hosts. They provide a nice big couple of rooms, classrooms, and a conference room. And then through the PMI chapter, we'll typically get 10 mentors for one night, and maybe 70 chapter members will sign up to be mentored. And the way it works is we set up 4 different sessions for each presenter. So like I will give 4 presentations that night to, let's say, 4 groups of 8 people, and the other 9 mentors are doing the same thing. They'll give about a half hour where they'll give as much advice on a certain topic as they can, and these are mentor related topics like how to find a job, how to change avenues, how to use LinkedIn most effectively, all kinds of topics. And each student comes to this event, or each PM, and they all get to choose which of the 4 that they want to attend at a time. So it works out great. It has a lot of additional benefits. It helps grow the PMI chapter. We probably get more students getting to NYU because of this connection. So it's a really good thing, and it's unique. And they call it speed mentoring because you're quickly talking to 9 or 10 people at once. And then, of course, you talk to them after there's a reception following where you can do some one-on-one connection.
Let me just make sure I get this right. So these are mini presentations?
Yeah, we do like someone like me, I'll do 4 mini presentations in one night. So I'll do one from 7 to 7:30, then another one 7:30 to 8, like that. Different group each time. So I have 10 people, let's say, for a half an hour at a time, where I can mentor them all collectively in one shot. So it's like a little bit of a presentation with Q&A throughout. And then there's a reception after where you could meet individually and answer any more questions.
And it's very targeted towards the topic that you and your co-mentors have prepared.
Yeah, they're very good about getting the word out between NYU and PMI. Very excellent people, Tatiana Rivera at NYU and Susan Cho at PMI New York City. They send out in advance the schedule, the topic list, and they let the students pick and choose which topics they want to attend. So every student gets to pick 4 events out of the 10 for that night. And so they get 4 different mentors that they connect to. They also meet a group of about 10 in each of the sessions. So everyone meets a ton of people, plus the mentors give as much help as they can in each session.
All right, excellent. One thing that we haven't talked about is a benefit that I thought of while we were going through the list of these 10. And that is, in fact, that if you are a PMP certified project manager and you act as a mentor, you can actually claim PDUs for that. And that is official in the category E, that is volunteer service. You can claim PDUs for mentoring. So check the PMP handbook. In fact, it's not just PMP, it's also for the ACP and all the other certifications from PMI as well. Just check your handbook under category E and see how many PDUs you can claim for being a mentor. So we've looked at the list of the 10 ideas that you had for mentoring. Which of these 10 do you personally like best?
I guess I would say the speed mentoring comes up because it's such a popular program and it's new and people love it. It's catching on a lot, and NYU is now doing it with PMI New York going into our 2nd year now. That's a very fun and gratifying way to be a mentor, and I like that quite a bit. Also, I really like helping my students, which was, I think, our item number 3, where I get questions after the class is long over from my students. It really takes the teaching to another level and mentoring to another level where you feel like you're really going to stay. Mentoring has kind of a lifelong quality about it. You feel like, wow, this is nice. I'm helping my student now and maybe again in the future, and really giving them guidance. It's sort of I think of it also as you wish you had someone like that when it was you, so now you can be that person for them.
Yeah, and of course, you and I, we are quote unquote at a certain age where, our experience from the past should be passed on to the new generation, to the young generation of project managers. So this is definitely something that we are getting into. How much work is being a mentor for you? Because sometimes to me, it's like, okay, here comes another email from another student. And, even though I kind of sigh, in the end, I enjoy when I do it.
Yeah, I won't say it's not a lot of work because it really is, but it's gratifying. Like all hard work, it's worth it and it feels good when you do it. You do have to draw the line sometimes. Like if you may get an inappropriate request sometimes from someone you don't even know, and you can't just do everything. You just don't have the time. But it is work, but I would say it's well worth it, and it pays benefits to both you and the mentor and the mentoree.
All right, well, let's talk about those benefits. How has mentoring made you a better project manager?
Well, I think it makes you understand your people better. So first of all, you're helping them, but you're immediately learning about them. You're learning what makes them tick, what makes them be motivated. So to understand your people is really key to managing them well. Also, you get their trust when you're their mentor, and the more trusting they are, the more of a good worker they'll be, the more they'll want to work with you. They know you're on their side, and they know that you're skillful, and they see that you know each one differently, and they appreciate that you know each student, each project manager as their own, each team member, and you know each one very much what are their needs. So I think it helps make you manage them better. It helps you come up better with which tasks should this team member be working on. If I have a choice, the more I mentor them, the more I know them. Also, it creates more loyalty. It creates a better work atmosphere where your people see you more as a guide, like a Sherpa model guide, instead of just a taskmaster. So I think mentoring helps fill that gap. This also makes other team members tell their friends, and you get more people that want to work for you. It makes you have people gravitate to wanting to work for you as opposed to someone who's just a taskmaster kind of project manager.
All right. In closing, many of our listeners might have gotten inspired and would like to become mentors. And, it's often quite easy to find somebody whom you can mentor, because there are many people out there who can use our help. But how do you become an effective mentor? How can you make sure that you are doing a good job? Can you give us your top 2 to 3 tips in this regard?
I think the key among all of the others is if you can take pleasure in the mentoring and say, you know what, I'm doing this as part of my job in my mind, the more you enjoy it, the more good you'll be at it, and it shows, and your people will like that you're mentoring them. I can give you a funny example. In teaching a lot, 2 of my students who were really good, and they were both the first to get the PMP from their class, they came up with their own unique mnemonics for memorizing some of the PMBOK, like memorizing the knowledge areas or memorizing the process groups in order, that sort of thing. So I had the opportunity, since I worked a lot with them and I was a bit of a mentor to them before and after the class, these 2 students they shared their tips in the class, but I actually put them in my book, and I made sure to get their names in the book. So this was sort of taking it to a new level, getting my 2 students' names in my book attached to their mnemonics that they came up with. So this was an example. This was great fun for me to do it, but it was kind of a nice thing to give back to them, and in the mentoring role. It makes me sort of cementing our mentoring relationship all the more, Also, it is a little hard to remember that it's all about the other person, not just you. So we all wake up thinking, how can I make my own life better, or how can I do my work? But when you're mentoring, you really need the mindset. What can I do for the other person? It's all about them. And it's easier said than done. But I think the more you can make it all about them, the better. And this is a skill that really good leaders are just great at this. They can focus right on the other person like a laser and think, how can I help the person I'm mentoring? So I would say those are my top 2.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Jeff. And thank you also for your time today.
Well, thank you. It was great to talk to you.
And that was our interview with Jeff Furman on mentoring. If you are a PMP or PGMP and you're looking for a simple and effective way to earn your PDUs, then try our sister podcast, the PDU Podcast. Get a new webinar and at least 1 new PDU every month on autopilot. Stop by at, pducast.com. That's pducast.com. And that's it. Thank you very much for listening. As always, you can find us on the web at pm-podcast.com. Please send your emails to info@pm-podcast.com, and when you write, please do tell me where in the world you are writing from. And finally, we have this popular saying that we twisted a bit. The saying is, a problem shared is a problem halved. And with a bit of project management cynicism, it becomes, a project shared is a problem multiplied. Until next time.